Opportunity. I have four distinguished speakers here. I will let each of the speakers introduce themselves for a minute, and post that we have made a lot of questions here to ask them, and we are waiting for an insightful session here. Starting with Ramesh sir.
Uh, Good afternoon. This is Ramesh. I am from Biocon, handling their group security and a privacy professional also. 27 years in the industry. That's a short introduction of mine.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Manish. I'm from Infosys, part of the corporate audit team. And yes, of course, the topic being important, this is something which we deal day in, day out. I have close to 20 years of experience, and thanks to CSA and everyone, those who are here to invite me for this particular topic to share my thoughts. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nagraj here. I'm basically a private practitioner, lawyer. So I started with intellectual property, overall about 15 plus years of experience. In the last 6 years, I've been more active on the technology and privacy side. Yeah, I worked on several multiple projects related to privacy and technology. Yeah, thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Anurag. I work with a company called Fairmatic. It's a startup AI-based insurtech company, and I head the security and privacy practice there. And I also work as, I'm working with CSA as a technical advisor. Yeah, I think over to Akhilesh.
So, thank you so much, everyone. So, a quick intro from my side. Close to a decade of experience in the industry, working with banking, manufacturing, and other companies, helping them to implement privacy across. So, without any further delays, we're going to start the session. Right. So, today's topic is on data governance in consent management. Right. So, how consent management and data governance can work together. So, we'll start with Anurag. Anurag, the first question is for you. How do you think the consent management practices should be integrated into the data governance of organization?
Thanks, Akhilesh. Yeah, I mean, to start with, right, any privacy program or while implementing or looking at a privacy program, I think there are three aspects to it, right? One is what we are disclosing to the data subject or data principal in the DPDPA perspective. What we are disclosing to the data subject, what are the data points that we are collecting, the purpose of that collection, and the consent that we are gathering from the data subject. Second part is we as people responsible for implementing these across the organization, what visibility do we have in terms of how the collected data is being used and consumed in the organization and across the product. Third part is what actually is going on the floor, right? I mean, we might be fighting day in, day out with a lot of our internal teams, be it DevOps or SRE or whoever has access to the data, the developers, etc. So what actually is happening on the floor, right? And a successful privacy program is, can be achieved if we reduce the gap between point 1 and point 3, right? So we, as the people who are responsible, we understand technology, we understand the legal aspects of it, and both legal and tech teams have to go, the compliance teams have to go hand in hand. And if we understand and reduce the gap, make sure our program is in such a way we have visibility towards everything in the organization, and the gap between 1 and 3 is reduced. Only then I think we can implement a robust program. And visibility, as we know, across security and privacy for people who are responsible for implementing these strategies and compliances. Visibility is the key challenge everywhere, right? Across the organization, across the levels of organization, visibility is the key thing. And there, I think one aspect or one thought that would really help is probably having some sort of an atlas or a world map, right? So of your product, of your respective organization's product, and what is that you're gathering. This includes all the consent dashboards and consent management programs, platforms, and what is that you're actually gathering consent for, and have this world map which covers all the aspects of your organization, be it internal and the product. I'm slightly biased towards the product-based organizations. So, have all aspects documented, have it listed, and, kind of an atlas, right? So you zoom into one particular thing and then you have a detailed explanation of that particular module or a product, a sub-product inside that. So I think having this in place is a very key thing with the ever-evolving landscape, across security and privacy. And yeah, I think that is something that would actually help, in terms of visibility. And of course, we have audits for ensuring quality and correctiveness of what we are implementing and reducing the gap anyways. So increasing the frequency of those and working on a feedback model, I think would actually help.
Perfect, Anurag. Thank you so much for that. So today I was listening to Avinash sir's speech and talking about multiple regulations that are there in the global. So my question for you, Ramesh sir, is to understand how the data governance practices in the organization can help us to comply with multiple regulations.
Okay, so first of all, I don't know where every other organization, but data governance also getting the shape in every organization as a practice within the organization, because we have collected data, but now people have started using the data. And when started using and for multiple purposes and taking decision out of it, the data governance comes as a critical part of it. When the data governance comes in, that is the foundation of any handling of data which is in an organization. Privacy being one of the component and compliance also being one of the component of the entire data governance structure. While data governance is taking care of the quality of data, architecture of data, and data stewardship, privacy and compliance is one of the critical component of the entire stuff. Now, when it comes to framework, so obviously there are multiple framework. It could be a regulatory framework, it could be framework related to geographies, it could be framework related to the different sectorial guidelines which is concerned, or framework related to the technology use itself, the AA regulation and AA governance in ethics, which we are talking about. For me as an organization, if I deal with all these scenarios, first of all, let me understand what data which I am handling, which sector which I am working in, and what technology which I am using, whose information which I am handling, and that people belongs to which all territories are. So covering all that and creating a framework for the organization itself will help you to cut across all the regulations across. Okay, so that is the first thing any organization has to do, saying that create their own framework considering all these. And that will help you to cut across the entire regulations and compliances to the world.
Thank you so much, sir. So nowadays we are collecting a lot of data and users are being aware about their choices that they have around the data, right? So nowadays, how we can include that preferences of the user into our organization data governance practices? So Manish, if you can.
So I think the key aspect here is organizations who are kind of collecting data. First and foremost, see, their preference is that they should run the business smoothly without any, regulatory impact. You'll end up into violation and all that. That is primarily in their mind. Now, if you look from that perspective, any business would like to kind of implement all these practices, whether you talk about taking consent, okay, even the India DPDP Act, which has been rolled out, organizations, typically, let me give you an example. I opt to buy a shirt online. I prefer something, and obviously it has to be shipped to my location. So there is some kind of a consent that we are talking about, and it is kind of anticipated that you have given the consent in that phase. You visit certain websites, you talk about, you show some preferences, and probably, nowadays it is very common that, they ask you for your consent, cookies consent, or the method you would like them to interact with you, or you may not be willing to interact further. They give you all the options, email, WhatsApp, mobile number, and all that. So this opt-in, opt-out techniques, even in CCPA and all, if you talk about, they have mandated, above 16 years, all that is there. So that's one part of it. We talk about all this. The other thing is, I wanted to add on one more important point is your data privacy audits also that we talk about, and automation there. So one key point there is, you would like to have a sanitized data, what data you don't need for any purpose, you probably don't need to keep it, and probably you want to filter that out. So a bit of on the data filtration. As an enterprise, your data keeps flowing here, there, you have vendors in the supply chain, you have your customer data and all that. So organization would like to have a 360 view of, what data is there, how it is flowing on, and for that there are various tools also that you may use. You also may want to, emphasize that depending on the type of data and business, you know what policies are important and all that that you should define for your organization and execute. So these are, I think, the key things, that we should focus. Yeah.
Listening to you, I just thought about the consent manager that's going to come in the law, right? So what is your take, Nagaraj, so in terms of how the consent management is going to come and how it is going to impact the consent management across?
Sure. So if you look at the overall regulatory framework for data privacy, it is one of the distinctive from GDPR, basically. There is no framework as such for consent manager because, see, there are few reasons probably. I want to just go to a little bit of background and then probably I'll come to the other scenario. See, one thing is India is a diverse country with, we recognize about 22 Indian languages recognized constitutionally, and there are many more other languages. So when we talk about consent, for example, so one of the key requirement for a DPDPA compliance, say suppose if you're a e-commerce company or anything, you need to have, local language, you need to take consent, fresh consent or whatever would be required at some point of time. So I think if you look at that concept, whether we can, see what is basically a consent. Consent is something which is, you are given free, unambiguous, and it's an informed, basically you know everything for what you are giving, what purpose you are sharing. And our data privacy framework is typically built on notice and consent. In terms of overall, and of course, we have principles and other things. But if we are talking about restricting to consent and notice. So in the notice, it would be already mentioned for what purpose they are collecting, who is processing, who is the, DPO for the data fiduciary, or the contact details of the data fiduciary. And then in terms of the consent wise, so basically, how do we manage? And as I told you, we are a large country with diversified. It's really, if you just go back and see how many times we are given consent, how many apps we are given, apart from the, what we have installed, anybody can know what's your digital identity or your digital footprint. It's difficult to manage. So in that aspect, probably I feel this is one of the game changer, or I really don't know how it would work out to a larger extent, but at least I feel this is one of the game changer and a distinctive kind of a thing. So let's look at what is the role of a consent manager. Typically, say suppose whenever you are signing in for a new service or whatever could be product, this one you are giving a consent basically. So for that consent, it has to be managed. So basically, you can think of a simple example could be your CIBIL, where we are all the data for your loan applications or probably what you are taken as a credit card, all things would be managed at one point where you can access at any point of time. So it is on a similar thing that, say suppose you are given consent to typically for a Google, for example. And what consent you are given? Probably you are given for processing the data, or probably you are given for sharing the marketing offers, for example. So probably there could be a, many other aspects that you would have given access to. And we all know that whether it is required or not, at some point of time, we are given access to each and everything on the app because we need the service. Maybe, for example, some banking applications would need contact, phone book access, all those things. So those are the things that we have already given. So However, with the, say suppose if somebody is using a Google or something, we can still track for which we are given access to that extent. So now let's come back with this background, let's come back to the consent manager as such, okay? So let's look at what is their typical role. And one of the other aspect is it's basically a tripartite model. One is the data principal, the other one is the data fiduciary, and then the other one is the consent manager. It's a three-way model kind of a thing. So it's typically what the data is stored is typically the data principal, this one. And the information provider could be a data fiduciary, and it would be having this one. Now let's look at what is the exact role of a data fiduciary. 1 second. Yeah. So basically to establish the consent management process. So it's basically, you can say, a technological infrastructure. It's a, what you call, independent body. I mean, we are of course waiting for the further rules, but at this point of time, this is what we can sense. So the other one is, say suppose if somebody wants to withdraw the access or delete the data, so it would be a, I mean, through the mechanism, it can be done. So then, so typically you can say they play the role of a facilitator kind of a thing, right? And then, see, as we know, the challenge is the language, right? So, I mean, recognized is about 22 and we have other languages, but at least, so the majority of the challenge would be lying on the language. Say suppose if somebody is in Kannada, somebody is in Tamil, somebody speaks Telugu, they can only, I mean, it's all about read and write also, right? It's not just about reading or even speaking, right? So it's all about three aspects. So in that sense, I think probably managing the platform in terms of the language, in terms of the request, in terms of being a facilitator, that would be the key role of the consent manager. And we need to see how it would be going further. That's my initial thoughts.
Ramesh, the question is for you. Like you have been with multiple industries. Till now, all the consents has been maintained at the organization level. But now, with the Indian DPDPA, the consent is going to a third party, the the management. So how does it impact the organization?
So while Manish was discussing, one of the thought which comes to me as a practical issue is while the entire, it's not only consent, managing the entire aspects of a data subjects, whether it would be any request which is coming into. So once it comes to consent manager through I'll get. So how will you validate the authenticity of that request which is coming into? Because I don't have the visibility to the end data subjects right now. So I should have a mechanism to validate the request which is coming in or the consent which is coming to me on behalf of the data subjects. So that is one of the practical challenges yet to be identified, how the consent manager works, what is, at what guidelines he will be working into, how the data can be validated and audited. Based on all aspects, only an organization can think about and engaging with a consent manager to get the consent out of it. So that clarity yet to be available for any organization right now. So other aspects, even in the newer scenario, even if we can take some documentation or an identity to prove that that consent is from that individual, still the document validity also to be validated because it's freely available in India. So that kind of setup, it's always a challenge, but while we are implementing, we try to overcome the challenges in the environment.
Right, thank you so much for that. So Manish, next question is for you. So nowadays, we are seeing for the privacy management, external tools raising the request, like withdrawal of consent, deletion of data, right? So how does our existing data governance practices supports that, the automation of requests that are coming in or the user themselves raising the request?
Yeah. Thanks, I think a very important question. Now, the best way to look at is, some of the organizations are matured enough because they have the entire repository of whose data consent we have taken, at what point of time, what was the purpose of, taking that information. And they have a clear view of, if the purpose is met or they are going to use it for some more time for any specific purpose. And then there are organizations who have just started on this phase. So typically they have there are two options, you know. You talk about opt-in, wherein as an end user, you know, you proactively kind of subscribe to the information that you are looking for. You know, either in form of some declaration or some check boxes, you say that, yes, you know, I want to get this information, and then, you know, the information starts coming in. There's another form wherein you talk about the opt-out method. So opt-out method where, you know, ideally, you know, after, you know, you make it an option that the information is like one-time use basis. So after that, your data should not be used, or it should not be used for any other purpose. Okay. Or maybe it is for a given period of time, you know. The second thing is, you know, you're trying to unsubscribe. So organizations give you that choice, you know, typically, you know, in a promotional mailbox, when you see promotional mailers and all that, you know, you get that option of unsubscribing, that you no more want to, you know, continue with that. So I think these two methods are there, opt-in, opt-out, and from organization perspective, we need to be very transparent in terms of, you know, what we are collecting, when, how, need to have the details, okay, and that has to be probably, you know, audited periodically to ensure that, you know, your data sanity is there, you are able to prove that it is for a given purpose and so on. So that's the thing. Thank you.
Please, I have a point. I think you mentioned about how the current organization's maturity is able to handle the data subjects request, whether in terms of concern and all that. One of the prime thing which I, as a person working in an enterprise, is coming in is visibility. Okay, so most of the organization have, maybe even a smaller organization have certain visibilities, but a larger organization doesn't have any visibility where your data is and how you are storing the data. So that is the first thing. If I'm getting a data subject request for a consent revoking, I need to understand which all area which I have stored that information, and I revoke consent for all the purposes and all the processes which I am using that data for. It's not that it is used by one function, one data collected activity is used by multiple processes. So you have to go and invoke or all the revoke situation in all the areas which you are in. So visibility is one of the scenario, discovering where you are keeping the data, what kind of data you are keeping, and creating a database of information which you are keeping and the purpose which is collected. That is very important in the organization. That is the first step of any organization to be created in terms of dealing with the entire data subjects request.
Thank you, sir. That's excellent. Right. So next question, Anurag, is for you. You are coming from a product company and you're technologically driven, right? And there's a lot of advancement happening, the way the products are expanding into different markets, right? So how do you handle the different laws coming from there, and how do you address them from the technology perspective?
That's a good question. I mean, that's a challenge I think a lot of organizations are facing today, right? I think, I mean, the way I looked at it is even we were regulated by a lot of, requirements, a lot of bodies, and the geographical laws, the law of land, right, in different areas. So I think it's all about, I mean, most of these laws, right, apart from a few deviations, like, it has been said about consent manager and things like that, which are, few things that set apart, per se, DPDPA. Apart from that, I think most of the laws, when it goes to the core of it, it's all the same, right? It's all about protecting the consent or protecting the identity of a person. Now, it goes back to that point itself. So are we, tying up the dots that were discussed? Are we actually using that data only till the extent where it was, provided, where the consent was provided? And does that also include our third parties, right? So third party is a substantial chain that, in most of the recent breaches that we have seen, majority of those involved a third party provider, right? So does the governance, the framework that we develop internally, does it include third parties as well? And that includes third parties of local geographies, and that third party can be from a different geography altogether. And some laws might be applicable to you as a data fiduciary, and then some laws might not be applicable to them. So how do you deal with all of this, right? And that's when you get into contracts. And, once you have so this is how it is, right? So once you have a framework, And then you identify, I mean, for all of this, right, it's very important that, our internal teams come together, be it legal or tech teams or the security teams, the CISOs, everyone come together and frame these policies so that it's, in line with most of the requirements. Basically, once you have the framework that is set out, it will have to address all of these, requirements from different geographies, and then you frame your contracts accordingly, right? And of course, have the penalties and all that included in the contracts. And only way to make sure the third party or the people who are required to abide by that is through audits. Like I said earlier, either reduce or increase the frequency of audits on your high risk entities and internal functions. And I think that's the right now, having a common framework is very difficult. In the previous session, Dr. Avinash has rightly said, it's kind of either it's globalization or it is going on the other side. But it's important for us as an organization, what is the requirement, what are the things that we are collecting, are we minimalizing it or not? And, are we in line with the consent that we have, acquired? And of course, answering to the data subject requests that come time to time. So I think that's the way out when it comes to looking at multiple laws from multiple geographies. A combination of all of this would be a way out, I think, in my opinion.
Thanks, Anurag. So Nagarajan, next question is for you, right? Anurag was talking about breach and about the trust, right? So how do you think the data governance practices and the consent management platform can enable trust to the end user?
Sure. So basically, as you know, data governance framework is typically, first is, for example, you do a data discovery, you start identifying where your data is, then you probably do a classification, whether it is financial data, client data, whatever the things. Then finally, you set out some policies, internal policies kind of a thing. Then you typically make some rules, right? How do you want to utilize them, or what? See, end of the day, as we know, data was already there from several centuries kind of a thing. So with the technology, how it is being utilized, or how it is being misused, or how it is being abruptly abused, whatever you can sense, right? That is what typically, that's why we need today data governance framework, and we need multiple geography. Every country want to implement laws kind of a thing. So one thing is, see, when it comes to data or money kind of a thing, trust is the most important aspect, right? So how do we, establish the trust among the customers and the enterprise kind of a scenario? Say, suppose, simple example would be, one of the, with respect to consent manager, there is already some test has been done by the RBA in terms of creating account aggregator kind of a scenario, where, say, suppose, there are already established regulated company, I would say. For example, HDFC Bank, all these banks. If all these banks are connected across a platform where, say, somebody is applying for a loan, somebody for a pension, whatever, insurance, all these things, for example, at one point of time, at one access kind of a thing, it can be accessed kind of a scenario. Where it's basically a platform where they're sharing among the trusted providers. So that's where this concept of consent manager principles, legal principles have been already implemented, and there's a technical guidelines and other things listed by the RBA. So if you look at that as an example, I think probably one is trust is the most important factor, especially when to whom you are sharing the data. And the same logic applies, who is collecting. They are also, as an enterprise, they are also responsible how they are processing. So if you look at those principles, probably. And in terms of banking, I wanted to add one more thing. With the blockchain technology, they have already done in terms of data minimization, probably data simulation, and other one is in terms of data localization also to some extent. So they've already done few, trials already done. So based on this kind of a scenario and principle with the trust and the consent manager framework, I think we can see a, good future ahead, and probably at one point we can access our data where we are given, and we can probably even withdraw going forward at some point of time. That's what I can say.
So before I pass on the mic to the audience, Ramesh sir, Manish, do you want to add something in terms of how we better enable the trust?
I think he pointed out, the crux of the entire discussion. Whatever we discuss, it is all to build that trust among, the customer base, that whatever data you collect and how you upkeep the data, that is what I don't think we have enough examples, in the industry today. How you deal with the data is probably indicating what kind of organization it is and whether you want to go ahead for any further relationship as a B2B, B2C or whatsoever. Okay, so and of course various models we all discussed, what to do, opt in, opt out, how you collect the data, how you sanitize the data, how you process, you keep, access, this, that. I think it is all in terms of, making it stronger, enforcement of the processes internally within the organization. And also one of the key thing is educating, people within your organization, because people, are almost the weakest link. We can, improve the controls and all that, but at the end of thing, is all about the awareness and, in what sense people take it up. So that's the aspect I wanted to add. Thank you.
So I have a very short answer. It is creating transparency what you are doing and demonstrate what you are committed for in the entire compliance regime. So that is simple aspects which you can give gain trust of all the stakeholders.
Right. Thank you so much, everyone. So I'll open the platform for the questions.
Hello.
We have the first question.
I'm audible?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Sujay. I'm a consultant. So one of the primary problems that we are facing in terms of consent collection, when we look at customers in BFSI or healthcare industry, where customer onboarding is done both online and at the branches, right? And there are a lot of senior citizens who are not tech savvy. So my idea of consent collection is, okay, we send them on the app, they say yes, they click some site. But then there are a lot of organizations which have both, technical, like online onboarding, or similarly, same activity is done on site also. So how do we manage this? What is the better approach? Should we have only one online consent, or can we digitize the physical consent forms? Is that a valid option?
Okay. So I'll give you one of my practical experience. So for me, in one of my earlier organization, we have maybe 10 to 15,000 of contract laborers were working. Okay, most of the contract laborers have different language, different way of understanding. They don't understand technologies. What we have put in is wherever the contract labor management department were there, and all onboarding happening with a gate pass system. Okay, so because without gate pass, they cannot come into the environment. We created multiple forms with which they can read and sign, and then later that digitized and get into the contract labor management platform. So thus we acquire the consent of them. That is one of the practical activity which we have done.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Just one thing I wanted to add on your question. See, practically, each business is different. And the customers with whom you are connecting, probably, some of them may understand, some of them may be digitally enabled, and some of them may not be. Like you spoke about the senior citizen. At the end, what we need to keep is the record of such consent, whether you have the digital or, physical form. Till the moment it is there with you, I think you are, on the right side.
At some point of time, we might even see a video consent also, where they might read out in their own language, probably at some point of time. So that would enable, means at least we have a valid consent. So it's quite possible we might have multiple consent format.
Sorry, just to add, I think, key thing here is awareness, right? So how do you make sure that the person who's giving consent knows about what they're giving consent to? I think that comes with time. Maybe we'll have to wait and watch. And localization, as pointed earlier, plays a key role there, because of the geography that we're talking about. And I think it comes with the time and the people who are responsible for creating that awareness, right? So we've seen in the last 9 years, we have seen a lot of things go digital. And that technology which went digital, some part of it, not all, has been, carved out in a way that people are able to use right now. Right now, everyone has a smartphone, and I know there are challenges, around that. I know there are a lot of challenges around that when it comes to using those devices and using the technology. But I think key thing is awareness. Just like how we have gaps in, adhering to the compliances and the laws that we already have in India. I hope, the awareness part doesn't go that way and becomes more, proactive and people focus on awareness, especially in that part.
Yeah, I have one question. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. See, if I am a third party who's developing a consent manager platform today, right, I would be visualizing a lot of scenarios and what kind of data field they'll be requiring to handle and all. By very definition, would this consent manager not end up becoming at least a joint controller? Because I am visualizing what kind of data is required to run my business, and that is what I would go. Let's say a bank is outsourcing its consent management process to me. I need to have some platform ready. This is the field, they are the processes. So that would make me at least a joint controller along with the bank itself, right? So the status of this consent manager himself, would he not end up becoming at least a joint controller, not just a processor alone? What are your thoughts on that?
I think you are right, because I am not giving only the information one customer or one company is required for. As a data subjects, I give certain information onto the consent manager, and in turn, I am dealing with multiple enterprises or a organization. So I tend to give required information to each of them. So in a way, they comes as a joint controller because they are keeping the individual's data there. And while I'm deciding the process of a certain set of data which I'm trying to get it from them. So in a sense, the same. Multiple. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is well understood. One key thing is that, as a question, if I ask anyone into that activity, do you have access to the data and, what kind of, for what purpose you are using it? In your case, dealing with such amount of data, I believe multiple or the data, this guy actually, is going to play a role with multiple organizations, right? And then the end customers also. So obviously, it is implicit that, all those compliance requirements, will have to be met by this person also, right?
No, two things here. One, as a compliance, other one is the technical safeguards at the same time. So that would be the key aspect, because not everybody can become a consent manager, because they have to ensure that they meet the requirements and the guidelines, whatever is required. Otherwise, it would be definitely a mess at some point of time.
We'll take one last question.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Indrajit from the Manipal Law School. I'm an associate professor. I just want the panel's view on a certain aspect which I was thinking about when I was hearing this discussion. As far as the online platforms are concerned and taking consent from people, be it Google, where I'm trying to open up my email ID or anything, most of the consent are in the form of click-wrap contracts, and they are standard form of contracts actually. I don't have the power to change any of the clause, and since now I have to open an account in Google, I have no other option but to click yes. Okay, and if I do not click yes, I cannot open my account. Now, in that contract, in that click-wrap, there are terms where the company has unilateral decision to change that terms of privacy anytime and whenever it likes. So, because as of now, we see that the YouTube's privacy policies keep on changing and they just keep us a mail. I have no right to say anything about that because I have already consented. So how is my data privacy law, as far as Indian scenario is concerned, or even the GDPR is going to help me in this such a scenario?
I think going forward, probably you can see a fresh privacy notice, fresh terms would be possible. For that, what you are consenting, probably you can keep a record of that log or whatever at some point of time. So that's where the consent manager role would be helpful, so that you know where exactly what you are given, so that whenever you want, you can withdraw the access. So all these would unfold at some point of time. Probably the best thing that can happen over a period of time would be the fresh consent what you are giving. That would be the.
That's I think that's the point I was coming to. I think that will be interesting to, or it will be interesting to watch if there will be some sort of a SEBI or a RBI sort of entity that regulates all of this, because that's essentially what it drills down to right now. I'm sure in insurance, I think when it came as a market to India, same thing would have happened, right? Where people would have offered insurance and they would have come with their own terms. Now, whether you accept it or not, you'll have to abide by those rules. Then, there came the IRDA and then they've set right a lot of things. Now, everything by default, it's there written, right? So I am expecting or looking forward to have some sort of a, similar body which comes here. Because in certain laws, right, for example, CCPA or CPRA, there the law itself outlines in very clear way when it comes to rejecting or denying certain cookies and all of that on the website, right? So you can provide consent, and the steps that are required to reject the cookies should be lesser or equal to the steps that are required to accept the cookie. So some sort of strong language and a regulatory body is something that would actually help in terms of the current, context.
Two things which I personally feel is, one, obviously it's maturing, okay, even if it is while he is mentioning cookies. Earlier it was a unilateral acceptance were there. Then it comes, he's saying that selective acceptance. Now it comes that you can reject all also. So it is gradually moving. Thus the maturity will come in. Second, the regulator per se, there are sectorial regulator also and the overall. For example, DP Data Protection Board, when it constituted, he will regulate whatever in the clauses are.
I have a very small question. So what methods for auditing data privacy in machine learning systems? So is there any standard method for auditing data privacy in machine learning systems?
No, but I don't differentiate technology with privacy requirements and privacy audit. I have certain set of controls as an organization to make, whether it I uses in machine learning or AI or in blockchain or robotics, wherever it may be. So that certain controls related to privacy, which I need to audit in across the technologies. So whether if I wanted to use a technology enablement audit or a simple checklist based audit, which we perform in across the vertical. So I don't differentiate between technologies.
Hi, this is Murthy. So I used to work as a chief architect on privacy and protection. So my question is like, what will be the additional technology, economy and human resources expected to integrate this consent management with the data governance? Because data governance is a different application and consent management is a different application that is still emerging in that. So what will be the additional things required from the cost as well as from the technology and the people related things? Whether it is going to be a minimal or maximal or how we are looking at it.
So if I may understand correctly, you are mentioning about technology with respect to data governance and consent management.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So data
governance. Not technology, advancement required to integrate.
Okay, so it is technology. Obviously, when you have multiple technologies, you are taking one technology, using one technology to take consent. One technology is to even discover and do your entire data governance in one. The integration between technology is always needed because consent is needed when you are onboarding that data into an organization. It's the first time when you are acquiring the data. So people obviously need it because it's not that new set of people is emerging in. You have a data governance team in any organization or a privacy team in an organization, regulatory team would be there or the business function would be there. So all this function is collaborating, working together is the manpower requirement which I am seeing. It's not that additional manpower which I am seeing to be technology. Obviously, there are certain set of technologies would be required while we mature and do this maturity into the organization. So we don't know the cost exactly right now because even privacy tools are getting emerged right now. So the costing and all that will be maybe it's varied between the industries and varied between the processes.
Thank you.
And awareness and, one point to add is, again, skill up as we always do. Different people from all lines, like it's been rightly pointed, all teams should come together, improve their learning and skill up. Probably someone like me who's been largely focusing on tech, I am learning law now. and someone from the law background, my fellow lawyers are actually learning, technology now. So everyone has to come together, when we frame the, governance frameworks and, work hand in hand, only then this would be possible. If not, it will be a challenge.
There is one online question here from our associate, Mr. Adepu. It's about what are the challenges data judiciaries, Gram Panchayat, rural institutions may face in obtaining and maintaining consent, specifically from illiterate individuals?
See, as I mentioned, probably a video consent or probably somebody reading out what they are giving access to, right? Giving in the local language. Probably that could be the one solution that I can sense. Otherwise, I'm not.
Just take a classic example of banking, right? So many illiterates are part of banking. How are they working, right? So the person responsible for opening the account, or there is a teller that is there to talk to them, right? So that's how, if we are going at a grassroots level, that's how it's going to work.
I think this challenge is going to be there till, you have such a community available
Agreed.
in the country. Okay. So it all boils down to, somebody informing them well in advance, in detail, what are the implications, what we are collecting, what is the purpose. And, whether it is a video consent, or any other method that you get the consent evidence with you, the process will keep moving.
Right, we are time up, so please, if you have any more questions, we can pose.
All right, thank
do it
you.
pose it. Thank you, everyone.
For evoking the thought-provoking ideas, the gray areas, the ideas of integration, inclusivity, and the ideas of friendliness when it comes to consent of data management. May I invite Professor Dr. Dadich to give away the memo? Okay. Please, may I invite Ms. Satyavati to give away the mementos to the speaker.
Okay, consent management. How much we know about it? Who has to give consent, who will not give? Huh? Did we take in consent while you coming here? No? How many people haven't told at the home? Okay, let's ask the question away. Okay, now I am in the middle. I'll see where I can. Who has the answer? Raise your hand, please. Nobody? Front seat.
Option C.
Was it here?
Is it right? C, right? Everybody believes? Why, sir?
So ultimately, the consent management is to give that confidence to the individual who has shared his personal data in terms of how it will be used, when it will be used, and ultimately, let's say if I decide to opt out, I should have the capability to clear my data from the entity which is storing it.
No, I thought it's data governance and compliance, no?
No.
Why no?
Which one?
Governance and compliance also, no?
Yes, yes, obviously.
That is also there. Why not that is the right answer?
The best answer is C.
Best answer. Excellent, excellent. One. Thank you very much. Your name?
Mahesh.
Thank you, Mahesh. Next question. We have one more question, right? Can you go, friend? One more, sir. Yes. One more question on the consent management. Good. Get it up. Okay, your luck depends on where I am seeing. Okay. Okay, already raised. Okay. See again.
So many hands raised.
C, C.
Sure?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it the same one or what? Oh man, this is really, really bad. Yeah, we should have had a better question, right? It seems it's okay. It's the same question, is it? You answered that? Oh, I answered, it seems. Okay, let me ask a question then. Huh? You need to answer verbally this time. Okay? Okay. Yes, you need to first raise a hand, answer right. Okay? Already raised the hand. Excellent. Okay. People believe, okay, in the olden days onwards, there is a trust between doctor and patient. Yes or no? Yes. What type of consent a patient might have given to the doctor to have that? First raise your hand. Okay. Okay. I'll give chances and we'll again, all of you decide whether that's the right answer, okay? Then only we give the gift.
It's
Okay, yes or no? No. You get chance.
Trust.
Trust, yes? But how the trust is given? My question is, how the consent has been given?
It's implied consent.
Implicit consent, yes or no? Yes? Everybody agrees? Yes, partially.
It's under the doctor-patient confidentiality and an implicit consent.
Implicit consent. So, patient is thought that, okay, it's given. The doctor is going to take care of it. Yes, sir?
Yes. Because of the special relationship between the doctor and the patient under the tort law, wherever the patient goes, there is an implied consent he has given to the doctor to take care of him.
Excellent, sir. Thank you. Your name, sir? Name, sir?
I'm Professor Venkat from Manipal Law School. Probably I wanted to give it to somebody else.
Then I think you are not eligible for that, sir. Okay, anyway, keep it. No, see, students anyway get it all the time. Professors also should get, no? Okay, thank you, sir. We move on to the next segment.